That's hella XP.
This game is a Forged in the Dark game. It's based off of Blades in the Dark, which, is a pretty popular game in the indie game space. And one of the things they did was, they set up really simple choices for the players to start with, and they also gave you a crew sheet. And those two kind of things, when you're creating your character and starting up, you really are just giving the GM all the notes for the kind of game you want to play. And Shibuya Knights doesn't have the crew sheet, but it does have bonds,
Mhm.
and it encourages you to create just a real rudimentary backstory. It can absolutely change in the first couple sessions, but it really sets you up to signpost to the GM, I want to do this thing, you know? And the way I approach it, this is how I want to solve problems, you know? And so, we've kind of talked around how, collaborative storytelling in games is really this really interesting dance where everybody's like contributing and offering kind of where the story should go and how it should develop. But that character sheet, that's typical in PBTA games, that's typical in the Forge in the Dark games, it just really, you know it gives you really simple choices, and they just really kind of create a strong direction for where the game should go. And they just give the GM tons of story hooks,
Yeah.
you know. And I think there's definitely, like, for new GMs, I hear this notion of, I don't know how to run a game. But what often goes unsaid is how the character creation in some of these newer indie games does all of this work to help you
Mhm.
to poke people and push their buttons to tell the stories that they
Yeah.
want to tell.
Yeah, I want because all of you guys have run games before, so I just want to bring up. I love Shibuya Knights did it, and Blades in the Dark does it, where your character creation, you come up with NPCs that are directly connected to your character. And
Hmm.
before when I've played a couple games before these, I always felt terrible writing this big backstory and like putting people
Right,
in my
right.
past because I thought I was giving the GMs more work to do, but it seems like that is very helpful to you guys, and it's really fun as a character to see this person that you made up come back in to your
Hmm.
story. But you made them that way, so it's like you guys as GMs, like how do you feel about that part of character creation, automatically adding in an NPC or two for characters?
Personally, I think it's awesome. Like it's one of my favorite parts of character creation, and it's a part that was not there in the first games I played either when I was playing Dungeons and Dragons as
Right,
a kid or whatever. Like you build a very insular character, and I think
right.
it's easy to be like, this is who this person is without thinking about all the people that have influenced them and that are still in their lives and that are still around, which makes really a lot of sense. So every time I have to do it, I'm like, it's more work I have to do as a player to like invent all of these people around, but like naturally it grows out of your backstory if you write the backstory right. We're like, oh well, this is an important event in this character's life. Obviously, this is the person who did it, and this is their relationship now, and like their enemies or their friends, and that really does help. And as a GM, I love it. So finding all of those, using all of those hooks together, um, really does
And
make for a richer story.
I just want to chime in. Like, it's really important to the kind of game you're playing, what kind of questions you ask about those people,
Hmm.
and I find, like, when started off playing D&D, I would write a three-page backstory, and it would include 20 NPCs, and um, they're all from your hometown. And the first thing the GM is planning to do is to take you into a dungeon that you're going to
Right.
play in for the next 12 sessions. So they don't matter. And when you are playing a lot of these newer games, that actually questions about the people who are going to be relevant to the story and the way that it's going to be relevant to the story. You know what I mean? And so it's asking a question that is actually relevant to what's going to happen.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I was recently reviewing my notes from this book on Nordic art design I read over the pandemic, and like I don't remember the exact wording, but something about how like backstory is only relevant to the extent that it can come into the game, or like like that it
Yes,
means
yes,
something. Like otherwise, it's at best distracting. And in a situation like this where you're working with a finite number of players, like so like at the LARP I do, which is great in a million ways. But one thing that's tough with backstory is there's like something to like 300 players a game, maybe 1,000 active players. The story staff cannot keep up with or
right.
promise or even remotely think that anything you write in that backstory is going to actually come into play in the space. So at best, it's like a calibration thing for you. If you want to refer back to it, you can. But in practice at the LARP, who people were before they started playing the character
Hmm.
almost doesn't matter, and it doesn't come into play a lot. But yeah, I love when it's like anything important in our lives. It's we remember the things that are meaningful and are important parts of our past and or we expect would be an important part of our future potentially. And and then because this is a collaborative medium, yeah, I only get excited. I see them as hooks and things, when people, and that's why, yeah, I think for Star Wars, I'm like, hey, make a couple NPCs that are, now I'm just asking people to do it before,
Yeah.
like before, but I certainly didn't have taken any affront to it when people voluntarily would do that on their own. And that's something you pick up over time, but I think it's pretty valuable, and it can be fun figuring out when and how to deploy those connections and see what it means. Make all your characters' lives a little harder sometimes. Even though I
Right.
tend to play a goofball, I often run fairly serious games as a GM. Which is interesting.
Well, and even your goofball character, like even Simon Harrow has the moments where he's got to be like, "Look, all right, I'm Simon Harrow. Like, leave me alone about
Right.
this. Like, I'm trying to do a thing here, or like,
Right.
you caught me, and let's just go about our business, or whatever it is." So I think that's good.
Yeah, I think it's sort of like, when I first went to this LARP, it's called Twin Mask. Like, I'd never been to a LARP, and I'd done so many different cousins of immersive and interactive and role playing, but never that. And you know, something on that scale I'd never quite done. I'd been to some big immersive shows and something, but like, and it's just interesting, like the reality of this world that we're all making together. Like, just this, so that's what I mean. Like, even, how goofy a character is, I try to keep him rooted in the world we're in and make
Right.
it make sense as much as is possible. Not break the reality of the game, whatever, however absurd it may be from the start line. uh, and it's so interesting that like, like in a LARP setting, like various degrees of costuming, things in the environment that are anachronistic in like a fantasy LARP, but your brain, like just sort of like the level of commitment that everyone there, and this is true in a good RPG group as well, like that brings to it, and just like, hey, makes the world feel like a world and makes the characters feel like characters. I don't know. I think it makes it, yeah, it makes it, it's a facilitated co-creation that's pretty great.
LARPing is doing this thing at a whole nother scale.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
sure
I,
is.
I, I can I can absolutely imagine, running a game for 6, 7 people. Um, yeah, once you get above that, um, yeah,
Yeah, I like how did you phrase it, Emmett? You're like, this is a finite number of players in this game, as though that is a foreign concept for a game.
Yeah.
a, a
That's what I'm
deliberate
picking up
choice.
on. Like your laudable goal of keeping these sessions on a reasonable time frame is aided by the number of players. I don't know what the
Hmm.
multiplier is per player, but if each other one you add, that adds
Yeah,
a amount of time, because everyone's just turn-based things that are happening. So
Sure. Yeah.
bottom line,
yeah.
besides just like servicing characters, giving them their time to shine and stuff.
Right.
So, uh, yeah, 3 players is eminently manageable, especially when you're like, hey, I want to make this into sort of bite-sized consumable things, because what I observed working on Vast was,
which had how many players?
Well, 5 on a regular team, but occasionally both teams were there, so occasionally 10 or 11. But there was something special about the liveness of it, like which was cool, and but it was an interesting animal because we had 2 different ships in the sci-fi world, and we alternated every week, and so we weren't really in a position to like, well, we're out of time, we'll pick up next week, because next week the other cast was scheduled to come in. So for better or worse, this story had a beginning, middle, end, and that in practice meant that it ran pretty long, and that beginning, middle, end made it feel like more like an episode of a TV show in a way that I think is good in a show that's being meant to be watched as opposed to be played. But at the same time, some of our episodes are the longest RPG shows I've literally ever seen, and it's, while somebody might sit down and binge 6 episodes of Stranger Things, in practice, psychologically, it's a lot easier to press play on an hour thing than a 4.5-hour thing, even though you could realistically stop at any point in it. Just sort of that natural break, like, hey, I only committing to an hour. If I watch another hour afterwards, I can do that, but I can recalibrate.
It's another choice.
So like I said, the liveness is cool, that like, hey, the audience is discovering this in real time alongside the cast and the storytellers, and we're in the chat with them, and we're, our mouths are hitting the floor at the same time as they are. That's nice, but that does mean you can't cut out any of the fat. You can't break it. I mean, you can technically, but like, maybe I guess you could do a live original experience and then sort of a edited down post cut. But in practice, realistically, I guess, I don't know. I guess I'm saying there's strengths to both, and it's hard to reconcile both. You kind of have one or the other, right? You have the live thing, and then it is what it is, or you have the not live thing that is you cut out some of the fat and you break it up into digestible chunks, and that people can reasonably engage with. In practice, that might be one of the better ways to do it. Although Critical Role is wildly successful at it, and they run it live and have it run as long as it runs. So who can say?
Yeah,
they just booked out Wembley Stadium not long ago. They filled it up, and people came to watch a live role playing game. But I think you're right.
Wow.
It's kind of like that difference between theater and an episodic TV show. You're signing up to do a thing. You're signing up for an experience. And I think when you go to see theater, it has a magic to being live. Um, I think there is another approach where, you know, it's like, just show me the highlights. So, it's a choice. Um, I think we should kind of wrap this up.
Okay.
I definitely would love to hear what the audience thinks about kind of these kind of sessions. I would love to talk about kind of what you guys see as your choices as players when you're playing the game, and how you feel like you can affect the story. Um, we could get a little geeky and talk about spotlight and power, and all this other stuff. And I'd love to hear about how you guys um, adjust it to solving problems. Some ways, sometimes that doesn't involve fighting. But again, those are big topics
That's for
we could
next time.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
tackle next time.
If people want to
Um,
see more of this, so let us
if
know
people want
that
to
you
see
want to
more,
see more of this.
exactly.
All right, my name is Emmett Fury, and that's what I am on every platform. I used to be good at posting on the internet, and I got bad at it, and I'm hoping to get good at it again. So But if you want to find me or reach out, I get all those messages. So Twitter, which is the only thing I will call it. I'm on Instagram, on Facebook. It's all Emmett Fury. I'm on LinkedIn, whatever. So that's
Someone
me.
uses that.
That's where to find me.
Okay, I'm Matt Conan, and you can find me at cinevore.com, Cinevore, like a creature that eats film, consumes it for a living. Or you can find me as I'm either Cinevore or Cinevore Film on Twitter and Facebook and LinkedIn and Instagram, and attempting not really that hard to be on TikTok, but it exists. So that's me.
I am Lauren Sapolo. I am on most platforms except for Facebook, so don't look for me there. I am on TikTok. You can look up Lauren Sapolo or Lauren Wright Stuff. I'm on Twitter also, that's all I'm going to call it, and Instagram at Medic Linden, MEDICLINDEN. That has to do with parallax. Yeah, and I'm on LinkedIn and all that other stuff. But if you look up Lauren Cipollo, Cipollo, you should be able to find me.
And I'm Mo Poplar, designer of Shibuyan Knights, also designer of Bullet and Blank, a RPG, a card-based RPG that's kickstarting right now. A great little situation for people who, aren't necessarily sure they want to get into an RPG. Games last about, 20 or 30 minutes. It's very easy to pick up and well, you have to pick it up, but it's easy to learn how to play and play with people who don't play. And it's also a great game to play between games or if
Mm-hmm.
somebody's running late. Um, you can find my stuff at ashyfeet.com, ASHYFEET.com. I'm ashyfeet1 on Twitter, and I'm ashyfeet on Blue Sky, which I'm trying to figure out if that's really a thing.
We'll find out.
And that is to say, people are really nice there, and I think that's cool.
Oh, good.
That's good.
And I have definitely enjoyed the different vibe from Twitter, and I should probably be more on Facebook and all that other stuff too. What's a
Eh,
TikTok? Yeah. Anyway,
yeah, exactly. I don't think anyone should be on it any more than they are. It's plenty. There's a
right.
plenty. We're all on it too much, really.
Yeah.
Let's keep making stuff.
Yes, agreed.
Yeah, that part. Anyway, thanks for joining us. Hope you're loving the show. Let us know if you have thoughts or advice or requests, and yeah, we'll talk to you again soon.